Hey guys, welcome to a brand new mixing tutorial, and I just look at the wrong side of the computer because the camera is now here. And let's take a look at these tones on this cover of Black Lungs by Architects. Such a good song, and I am very happy with the tones I got. Let's turn off the master chain except for the limiter to keep the tutorial at a consistent volume. And move right on. So, new drum sound, yet again, always experimenting right now. This drum sound is going to consist of the Bobershell room sound on drums and the Invasion on cymbals. So I aim to get some of my favorite cymbals ever, Invasion, with a slightly bigger and even more real, I would say, but heavier room sound than GGD. GGD is always very clean, very trendy. This one is here for like big sounds. The room sound guy by Bobershell. I really love this library. Apart from the cymbals, I can't really seem to make it work. Let's get the best of both worlds is what I was going for. Also modeling a drum sound from one of my favorite albums. Yeah, that's all I can say. It's meant to be very real sounding, but also very big. That is the point of it. Let's take off the processing. Quite a lot of processing, but you can see that the starting point already is very different than Gategood drums. So, kick drum. I think we're gonna aim to make it a little bit more meta out of the starting point, which immediately starts with this EQ, which is mostly about taking the 300 woofiness away. Immediately making it feel scooped and deep. Again, I've told you guys, I still don't know how to mix drums without this. The saturation from this SSL Brainworks makes every program drum sound a little bit more warm and real. As well as sometimes I take use of the EQ with a little bit of high-end boosting is usually the one I go for. And here I also use the compressor, which is cool. I almost never do. So going for the fastest release and what's already a preset slow attack. Big difference. Compressing that low end and that high end nicely for a more processed sound immediately out of there. Trans-X, not designing the low end today, just boosting the mids to make sure the kick pokes through. Nice slap there. You can hear that as I overdo it there. And yet more EQ. I thought it needed to be more metal, so that's more scoops in the 300 to 400 region, and a bigger one in the mid-range region, which somehow I pushed a lot here. But here it's good because it boosts it on the transient side. I don't want it on the sustained side, so I shifted the attack from the mid-range area to the more high-end 8K area, make it sound more metal. Big difference. Almost turned that into a different kick there. I've been using this sound on some demos, never used it on covers, so I'm rediscovering what I did now. And yeah, I used a limiter. So I wanted it to be louder, and I wanted it to have less of that pokey transient, so I just put it through a limiter. Makes it sound a little bit more bloated, even if the volume's lower, perceived volume's bigger. Snare has the exact same 5 plugins, but with different settings. You know how I usually roll. keep the plugin similar so that the vibe ends up being similar, even with completely different mixing settings, of course. So first things first, some ring. Mid-range honkiness. Gone right there. Not gone, but soothed, let's say. Again, saturation from the SSL desk. And here I use the compressor too. Actually, same setting as kick, which is interesting. It's really going to make them hit in a similar way. But it's all about the warmth of this SSL emulation here. Trans-X again, let's make it spank in the mid-range, but on the snare, the low end as well, beneath 200. Really making it pop. That's cool. A little bit more EQ. Getting rid of a few rings, boosting the fundamental, and again, a mid-range cut. Seems to be that with these drums, if I don't go to those mid-range cuts, they're going to sound a lot more rock and roll. And since I want them to work in this more metal context, the mid-range cut is usually the thing to do. And heavier limiting than the kick, for sure. Yeah, this really pushes it out there. It goes from a pokey snare to like a beefed up thing. Very cool. Don't overdo it, as you can undo all the attack you've worked hard to get. Toms. Shouldn't be a lot. Yep. Before, after. Okay, 3 plugins, but hardworking. Usual tom moves. There's a lot of places a tom can be annoying. It's usually in the mids. So we have anywhere from low mid cuts to actual mid-range cuts and an almost high mid-range cut. Seems to be common with this library if I want to make them more metal. A cool scoop there. And same thing, SSL for the saturation, the compression, but here also making use of the EQ. So boosting at 6K for brightness, cutting at mid-range again, 1.5, and boosting the low end. This guy is the main mix of the toms. That was before. And this is after. Very nice. Ran out of ideas and used the Reaper saturation. It's always a sound that I've known to like, as you can push it to 100 and it's a very subtle effect still. Makes it a bit louder and makes it a bit warmer. Again, it's all about that a beautiful warmth. At least when I'm mixing drums, programmed drums seem to be a little bit cold sometimes. Individual toms have individual fundamental boosts. That's one for the rack tom at 166 and one from the floor tom at 107. Always trying to boost the attack fundamental and not the sustain fundamental. So it's usually a little bit above what you might think. All right, everything that has cymbals goes through my brass bus. You guys know how it is. Seems like I was in the mood to cut a lot of cymbal harshness. From 2.5 to 4K, there is a huge ass dip. That's probably making a ton of difference. I'm not usually that aggressive with Invasion, but I gotta say, it kind of paid off. They instantly become silky smooth. That's amazing. A limiter here to stop the room snare from getting too loud. It's barely hitting, so don't worry about this move. And further cymbal smoothing. Getting a few more dynamic whistles that this doesn't get. If I turn it off though, Soothe works a lot harder. So it's all about combining what you hear with what Sooth hears to get the smoothest cymbals possible, and the before and after is mad for sure. Crazy, crazy stuff. Yeah, on the overheads, a little bit of a shift from 4K to 9K. You usually want more of this brightness and less of this harshness. Pretty simple move. Hi-hat spot mic, nothing to write home about. Has a little bit of mid-range. Overheads. Overheads for me are all about getting the compression right so that the energy of hitting the cymbals hard is there. Compressing the overheads is what it's gonna make your drummer sound like, from weak, I mean, too strong. So, good consistent drummer, and now it's like an energetic, hard-hitting drummer. I've always fallen back on DF Comp's overheads mode, which is something with a fast attack and fast release, I'm pretty sure. And yep, just blending it in, because if you overcompress overheads, it can sound very, very washy, and you don't want that. The same saturation, just a little bit. Kind of evens out the hits further, I guess. And just a little bit more moves. I thought there was a little bit of boxiness at 500. And those are the main moves here. Yeah. Sometimes when you hit cymbals, the mics can create these resonances. I mean, the cymbals do have information there, but we don't need it. There are 4 different rooms in room sound. We treat them all differently. Here's a mono shell thing. This is usually the kind of thing I like to distort. So cut some mid-range into bright distortion. It's actually called worm tape, but it's really making it brighter. From there to there. Just blending it a little bit of dirt. Shell room. Not much, probably the same moves. Reducing a little bit of cymbals and trying to get an adequate picture of the kit. That's a little bit hotter, definitely, thanks to Saturn. Just blending in some realness, if you may. Then I make a room just for cymbals. It's about compressing it to make sure it's very even, and then EQing any harshness out, and super highs, wow. To make sure that the cymbals always have a little bit of room with them, usually to blend with the overhead. Makes a difference in the cymbal depth as I solo and unsolo it with the overheads. And you know, I always like to have a track of basically just a snare on a room so that I can really compress it. Since this really was just snare, I got to go to town on the frequencies that I wanted more. I wanted a lot of bright snap out of this snare room and not a lot of mid-range. We have plenty of it in the other room mics as well as on the direct mics. Saturn, but Saturn only above 2K. So this is the main EQ move that's boosting a lot of highs. Yes. Warm, bright. And then it's all about hitting your favorite compressor hard. Really night and day. Blended with your direct mic. And there it is. That's your snare decay. Without it, doesn't even sound like a snare really. Cool. So far we got this. and we got like 4 different compressors on the bus because I've just been adding more and more every time I go to this drum sound. So the first one is our good old Joel Wanasek Boss Glue drums. This guy just tucks in the kick and snare a little bit nicely towards the cymbals. A rouser was here to give it a little bit of a slower attack to allow the drums to have a little peak as they poke through. Hopefully you can hear that. They gain this nice character. Very broad moves here. Maybe adding a little bit of the mid-range knock that I lost and boosting the kick drum strategically, and a little bit of sheen on the cymbals. Kramer Pi is just that magic once again. It's basically Boss Glue drums, but a little bit more towards this. But I've been adding more and more as I've used this drum sound again and again. Again, the key is just a little. And this guy by Kornev has been my new hero. Just literally proprietary signal processing makes everything sound better. It's not objectively better. It's like less mid-rangey, more scooped. An interesting sound that you have to work on. Nice drum sound. Let's move on to the rest. Moving on to bass. Y'all know what it is. It's your boy Eurobass, because I can't be bothered to tune my bass this low, so I program the bass. That's right. So we start with standard Eurobass distorted tone, which I always think is so fucking mid-rangey, and we make it warmer. So we cut a lot of that harshness out of the 2.8 and 3.3 areas, as well as a little bit of the honkiness of the Spectre at 800. That's a big help. This sub boost was for the last song I did, the Ocean's 8 Alaska song. It was tuned down there and it needed it. And I didn't take it off here because I didn't think it needed. Limiting it. So making sure it's a very consistent slab of low end all throughout the mix. Boosting the subs. So on the Ocean's 8 Alaska mix, I had it at like 50 because that was the tuning of the song. But here's more like at 65 because the song is tuned a little bit higher. We don't need all that information down there. Still a very big difference. My recent hero, this fucking astronaut looking plugin, Kornev AIP, again, with the proprietary signal processing, making everything sound a bit better, and the insufferable mid-range filter cuts perfectly on the harshness that Eurobass has, as well as compensates for it right here. Watch this before and after. That's absolutely insane, as well as scooping a little bit of 200. Make sure the bass is not bloated there. And a little bit of extra mid-range by Saturn. From 1K to 3K, you saturate that. Bada bing, bada boom, bass tone. So guitars today are very special because all throughout this song, they have somewhat of an octaver effect going on, like a low octave pedal, which is very, very cool. So the DIs are my Telecaster, good old first guitar in my life, through this Kellen McGregor pack, which I was just trying out because I was looking for a very mid-rangey guitar to match the original, and this Archon profile with the Mesa cabinet, I think, sounded pretty close. If anything, maybe a bit too mid-rangey, so that's what we work on. Check out this guy again. I think that's insane. And most of what you're hearing is a little bit of low-end boosting and compression from the PSP thing, the magic button, but also the insufferable mid-range filter nailing in on that 3.2 and smoothing that right out. I love this thing right now. Yeah, so I have to do very little with Pro Q3, just my usual. These filters aren't even real. The thing that matters most is the palm mute control. Here it's very, very heavy, like 9 dB deep, especially for a part where I'm building up to that breakdown. There's these little palm mutes. There was a lot of buildup there. Without it, it's basically unlistenable. Arouser makes sure it's just dead on, and the 20 millisecond slow attack gives the guitars this pick scraping at the beginning, like I've explained previously. After silences, you can hear it take a little bit to work, and it gives me very aggressive attack. And I'm blending that almost constantly, of course at varying levels, with this shit. So these are the same DIs running through Alter Boy an octave down. And if you think this sounds like shit, turn on an amp after. And I'm probably going to be using this tone in the future. So that's pitched down guitars through the VH4 on ToneHub, my favorite profile. Why not put it through this guy again? Even fatter with no EQ turned on. And yeah, cutting down a bit on some of that chubbiness on the subs and on the low end to make sure that it fits in. And that's some of the most awesome shit I've done to guitars. Really happy with that. Again, I'm gonna speed through the rest because I kind of gotta go. So lo-fi is literally same tone through the King's microphones. We grab Queen Elizabeth's microphone. Ooh la la. That's lo-fi for you. And you just filter it down with your Pro Q3. A little bit of a lead thing going on. You know how these guys roll. Grab your tone, same tone as the rhythms here so that it blends nicely, and your reverb 100% wet. That's how you get this sound. And yep, reverb as long as you like. Just make sure it's 100% wet, and it should cover your bases. Magic Sound Better guy. Notching out 3.2 again to save the day. And making it smoother with this. Very easy. Low clean on the brakes. Funny enough, I bought this Wool Putney pack thinking I was going to use all the heavy ass tones. So far it's paid for itself with the clean tones, which I think is crazy. Really jangly stuff. Super cool, especially as soon as you plug it into a reverb. Filter some highs just because it's a break and not a main part. And that's awesome. Really big fan. So it's your boy Labs right now. You know what it is. Basically no EQ on it. Free strings, by the way. Go get them. Go get these right now. at the end, I put the final orchestra melody on Sonyvox just to get a little bit of a different tone. Put it through the Sound Better guy. And very important, the reverb here. Really liking this whole algorithm with an equal mix. It works so well on orchestra. Super, super, super bueno. And yep, less bloating on 200 region. We're good. You know, your guys' favorite female oud choir, straight out of Expand. Make them girls sing. Easy. Sound Better guy. I mean, it's just for the Sound Better button, really, but also using the high-end boost here instead of the EQ, which is weird, but I'll find ways to make it work. This reverb is just here to be automated on the final note, I think. Yep, just making sure there's a little bit of bleed there. No EQ, we don't count that. And the rest is just the small stuff, the post-production. My explosion sound. Scooped a little bit today. The motherfucking siren, if you could remember that from the Animals cover. Slowed down into some reverb, pitched up. I hate this sound with all my guts. I gotta use it. And this beat here with more orchestral sounding drums. Nothing done to it apart from like chomping down on the high end for it not to sound too epic since it's a build-up. That is the mix, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of stuff I'm proud of, especially the low octave guitar thing. Go recreate this yourself and have the time of your life. All right, guys, thank you so much for supporting, watching this mixing tutorial. Leave any questions down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.